You know, every single modern digital chip, whether it's in your phone or flying overhead in a satellite, it relies on something called hardware description language simulation. It's kind of the unsung hero, right? The bedrock of making sure chips actually work. Without it, we'd be looking at multi-million dollar mistakes before we even get close to making silicon. So today, we're doing a deep dive. Think of it as a shortcut to getting really well informed about this pretty complex world of HDL simulators. We'll unpack what they actually are, how they got so powerful, who the big players are, and crucially, how different tools fit different jobs, all to give you a solid handle on this key tech.
Exactly. And it's a fascinating space. I mean, the market's mature, sure, but it's also really dynamic. We're tracking, over 24 commercial and open source simulators. We'll definitely cover the big three commercial vendors, those giants everyone knows, but also the important niche players and the really fast-moving open source scene. Choosing the right simulator, that's a big decision. Depends heavily on the application, budget, and yeah, performance needs are always top of mind.
Okay, let's start right there. Why is simulation so critical? I mean, with chips getting insanely complex, why is this the main way we avoid those huge, costly errors?
Well, it's fundamentally the best way we have to find bugs, logic bugs in designs before you spend a fortune on manufacturing silicon masks or, spend ages implementing on an FPGA. It lets you check the design at different points. Early on, at the register transfer level, the RTL, check. Later, after place and route, looking at timing, check. It's like the ultimate pre-flight check for hardware. You wouldn't risk launching without it, seriously.
And the history here is really driven by Moore's law, isn't it? This constant push for more performance. How did that shape the different kinds of simulators we have now?
It's a great story, actually. That relentless need for speed led to basically three main approaches, three paradigms. First up, you had interpreted simulators. Think way back to Cadence Verilog XL, or even today, something like the open source Icarus Verilog fits here. They essentially read and execute the HDL code line by line, like a chef reading a recipe out loud step by step while cooking. Super flexible for debugging, handles all behavioral stuff, but the overhead, it makes them really slow for big designs. Just doesn't scale. Right. Okay, so flexible but slow. What came next? Where did the speed boost come from? That was the big leap. Compiled code simulators. This was the performance breakthrough. Here, the simulator first translates the HDL code into a high-level language, usually C++ or System C, or sometimes straight to machine code. Then, it uses standard compilers, GCC, Clang, whatever, to build an executable simulation model. Think of the chef analogy again. This time, the chef translates the entire cookbook into a super optimized plan before starting.
Okay. More setup, but much faster execution.
Orders of magnitude faster. Synopsys VCS was a pioneer here. And now, it's the standard for all the high-performance commercial tools. Questa, VCS, Exilium, and also for performance-focused open source like Verilator.
Interesting. So that's two types. You mentioned three.
Right. The third type pushed speed even further, but for a specific niche. Cycle-based simulators. These are even faster, potentially, but only for designs that are purely synchronous, clocks only. They basically ignore everything happening between clock edges and just evaluate the state right at the active edge. So, extremely fast for the right kind of design, but way less versatile. Can't handle asynchronous logic, detailed timing, that kind of thing. Think historical tools like SpeedSim.
Okay, so speed is obviously king, or at least a major driver. But modern tools must offer more than just raw speed, right? What else makes them stand out? Let's unpack the key differentiators.
Absolutely. Speed gets headlines, but these other features are crucial. First, language support. It's non-negotiable. You need full compliance with VHDL, Verilog, and especially System Verilog. System Verilog is dominant now for advanced verification with its object-oriented features. And handling mixed language designs, also essential. Big Chicks often makes VHDL and Verilog.
Makes sense. Gotta speak the right languages. What else?
Second, verification methodology support. And really that means UVM, the Universal Verification Methodology. UVM is the undisputed industry standard for building test benches. So a simulator's value is tightly linked to its native UVM support. Does it have debug tools that understand UVM classes? Can it visualize transactions? Automate UVM tasks?
So good UVM support makes life easier for the verification engineers.
Massively easier. Without it, modern verification will be incredibly painful. Third, performance and capacity, revisited. Yes, speed still matters. We're talking billions of transistors now. So the tools need raw capacity, but also cleverness using multi-core processors effectively through parallelization and advanced compiler optimizations. It's still an arms race.
And finally, what's the last piece of the puzzle?
The debug and analysis ecosystem. Look, A superfast simulator is useless if you can't figure out why something failed. So it's not just waveform viewers. It's functional coverage telling you what parts of your design you've actually tested. It's assertion-based verification, power-aware simulation. And crucially for the commercial guys, how tightly integrated is all this? A unified platform boosts productivity massively. That saves time, and time is money. Big money.
Okay, that paints a clear picture of the tech. And it leads us straight to the companies building these complex platforms. The market really is dominated by the big three ED vendors, isn't it? We're talking Siemens ED with QuestaSim, Synopsys with VCS, and Cadence Design Systems with Excellium. And like you said, they're selling whole platforms, not just a simulator tool. Choosing one is a massive strategic decision for a company, right? A huge financial commitment.
Oh, absolutely. It's a multi-year, multi-million-dollar decision that shapes their whole design flow. Let's break them down. First, Siemens QuestaSim. It's the heart of their Questa advanced verification platform. Grew out of the legendary ModelSim. Their strategy now is Questa One, trying to unify everything.
And the pros and cons, what's the word on the street?
Well, on the plus side, it's very mature, very robust, decades of development there, excellent mixed language support, VHDL, Verilog, System Verilog, all running smoothly together in one simulation kernel. And its debug environment, Questa Visualizer, is powerful and usually included now. It's a broad platform, handles things like functional safety too.
Okay, sounds solid. Downsides.
The main one you hear, especially for really high-end, demanding ASIC simulations, is that the raw performance might be perceived as a step behind VCS or Excellium. Also, the licensing can feel complex. Sometimes people feel a bit nickeled and dimed for add-on features. And maybe, just maybe, sometimes a bit slower adopting the absolute latest standards, like VHDL 2019, compared to some competitors.
Interesting trade-offs. Robustness and debug versus maybe bleeding-edge speed. How does Synopsys VCS compare? You mentioned they pioneered compiled code.
Right, Synopsys VCS. It's really the cornerstone of their verification continuum platform. You'll find it in most major semiconductor companies. The big pro. Industry-leading raw performance, especially RTL simulation speed. It's known for being fast. Plus, it integrates tightly with Synopsys Verdi, their debug platform, which itself is pretty much the industry standard for debugging complex chips. And they keep adding advanced features, like stuff for metastability analysis.
So, Speed Demon, what are the catches?
Cost. It's extremely expensive, really targeted at large corporations with deep pockets. The learning curve can also be steep. And the native VCS user interface isn't always loved. Often you really need that Verdi license, which is separate, to be productive. One other nuance. Some say VCS can be a bit more, let's say, permissive in how strictly it follows the language rules. Good for old code, maybe, but not ideal if you need strict compliance for portability.
Okay, so VCS is the speed king, potentially pricey, and maybe needs Verdi alongside it. What about the third giant, Cadence Excellium? How do they carve out their space?
Cadence Excellium Parallel Simulator. This is their third-gen tool, and they really built it specifically for multi-core processors. Parallel Simulator is its core identity.
So its strength is using modern CPUs effectively.
Exactly. Big pro. Exceptional multi-core performance. Cadence claims big speed-ups, like 3x to 10x, especially on tests with lots of activity happening at once, typical for large SoCs. They also have strong integration for mixed signal designs, connecting well with their Spectre SPICE simulator for analog parts, and good low-power verification features. Another point is they're known for strict adherence to the language standards, the LRM. That pushes teams to write clean, portable code. And they're adding AI features, like the Excellium ML app for optimizing test suites.
Sounds impressive. Cons? Still cost, I assume.
Still cost, absolutely, extremely high. And because its power comes from many specialized apps and integrations, it can feel complex to manage. Some users also feel the base Excellium tool can seem a bit basic without those extra licensed add-ons like their advanced debug environment, Verisium.
So yeah, choosing between Questa, VCS, and Excellium, it's clearly not just about features. It's a huge strategic decision based on history, the type of chips you make, and really managing that massive verification cost and schedule risk.
Precisely. It's a long-term partnership. But the world isn't just the big three. There's a whole ecosystem underneath, targeting specific needs.
Right, like Aldec. They come up a lot, especially for FPGAs, but also making inroads in ASICs, yeah.
Definitely. Aldec offers strong alternatives. Aldec Riviera PRO is a really good example. It's powerful, but generally more cost-effective than the big three. It's great for complex FPGAs, SoCs, even ASICs. People really praise its VHDL support, often first out of the gate with new standards like VHDL 2019. Performance can be excellent too, sometimes beating Questa in benchmarks. And its graphical interface is usually seen as modern and user-friendly.
Any caveats?
Just check the packaging. Sometimes full mixed language support might be an add-on license, depending on exactly what you buy. And Aldec also has Active HDL. This was more specifically an integrated environment, an IDE for FPGA design. Think all-in-one. Design entry, simulation, project management. Connects to tons of other tools. Very user-friendly, affordable, even has a free student version.
Sounds great for FPGAs. Limitations.
Main one is it's Windows only. And performance-wise, it's generally a tier below Riviera PRO. So great for many FPGAs, but maybe not the absolute highest end stuff where Riviera PRO shines.
Yeah.
Then you have super specialized tools like Dolphin Design, SMASH. This one's all about mixed signal simulation.
So analog and digital together.
Exactly. Verifying those tricky interfaces where analog meets digital. It supports SPICE E for analog, plus VHDL, Verilog, and the AMS extensions for mixed signal. Really niche, not for your standard all-digital simulation.
Got it. And speaking of FPGAs, this is where it gets really interesting for many listeners. The simulators that come with the FPGA tools themselves.
Yeah, the vendor-integrated ones. It's a careful balancing act for companies like AMD and Intel. They give you something free and convenient, bundled right in, but they usually limit the performance or features so they don't completely undercut their big EDA partners like Siemens.
So what does AMD offer with Vivado?
AMD bundles the Vivado simulator, often called XSim. It's part of the Vivado design suite, no extra cost. It's actually a compiled code simulator, pretty capable. Supports UVM 1.2, functional coverage, decent features, and the integration within Vivado is seamless.
Downsides.
Performance is generally slower than dedicated commercial tools like Riviera PRO or Questa. And there's vendor lock-in. It's really designed for AMD, formerly Xilinx devices, and its support for non-synthesizable system Verilog test bench features can be limited compared to full simulators.
And Intel, what's their approach with Quartus?
Intel takes a different route. Their Quartus Prime simulator, QSIM, often actually bundles performance-limited versions of Siemens commercial tools. So you might get Model 7 Intel FPGA Edition or Questa Intel FPGA Starter Edition.
So you get a taste of a commercial tool for free.
Exactly. Free access to a commercial-grade engine, which is nice. Good integration with Quartus, the big catch. These free versions are significantly throttled in performance compared to the full paid versions of Questa. For complex designs, you'll hit that performance wall much sooner.
It's really fascinating how we got here. Thinking about the tools that came before, they really paved the way for today's simulators, didn't they? Their innovations live on.
Oh, absolutely. The history is full of influential tools. Cadence's Incisive, for example, was their main simulator before Excellium. A lot of its tech, especially around parallel simulation, formed the basis for Excellium. Or go way back to Hilo in the late 70s and early 80s. One of the very first commercial HDL tools, event-driven simulation. It actually influenced how Verilog itself developed. Even more recent tools like MPSim in the mid-2000s were tackling multi-core simulation early on. And remember SpeedSim, that cycle-based simulator from DEC. Its architecture hinted at the parallelism we rely on now. These tools didn't just disappear, their DNA is in today's platforms.
History lesson aside, let's shift to another really important area, the open source world. This isn't just for hobbyists anymore, right? It's critical for academia and increasingly used professionally, too.
Absolutely critical. Open source offers accessible, no-cost tools, and often they excel in specific areas. The key trade-off you often find in open source, though, is choosing between broad language support or pushing hard on raw performance. Usually they focus on one or the other.
Okay, so let's look at Verilog. There are two dominant open source players, but they seem quite different. Unpack those for us.
Right, you've got Icarus Verilog or Iverlog and Verilator. They complement each other perfectly. Icarus Verilog is the veteran, widely used, especially universities. Its goal is comprehensive support for the IE Verilog standard, 1364.
So it tries to run everything Verilog.
Pretty much. Great for legacy code, complex behavioral models. It's free, runs everywhere, Linux, Windows, Mac. Excellent for beginners learning Verilog.
Yeah.
Has good support for co-simulation with C code too through VPI.
The catch.
Performance. It's an interpreted simulator, so it's slow compared to compiled options. And its system Verilog support is limited. You won't be running complex UVM test benches with it. Debugging is basic, command line mostly. Needs an external waveform viewer like GTK Wave.
Okay, so Icarus is the flexible, comprehensive one. What about Verilator? You said it's different.
Totally different philosophy. Verilator has one focus: speed. Raw performance. It takes synthesizable HDL, the stuff you'd actually build into hardware, and translates it into highly optimized C++ or System C code that you then compile.
Synthesizable only, so no complex test benches.
Exactly. It's not a general-purpose simulator that aims for full language compliance like Icarus. It's designed to be the fastest possible way to simulate the hardware design itself.
How fast are we talking?
Exceptional performance. Often rivals or even beats commercial simulators for pure RTL speed. Easily 100 times faster than Icarus is common. That's why professionals use it, especially for creating fast models of CPUs or SoCs that software teams can use for development before silicon is ready. Great for integration into C++ or System C environments.
Okay, but the limitations sound significant too.
They are. Strictly limited language support, just the synthesizable subset of Verilog and System Verilog. No fancy test bench stuff, no full UVM classes directly. And, crucially, you have to write a test harness in C++ to drive the verilated model and check its outputs. That's a hurdle if you're a hardware engineer not comfortable with C++ ball. Plus, the initial compilation step can take longer than with Icarus.
So this really highlights why you'd have both. It seems counterintuitive at first, two Verilog tools, but they serve totally different needs.
Precisely. And that's a huge strength of open source EDA, specialization. Icarus for flexible behavioral checks and learning, Verilator for maximum speed on the synthesizable design core. It's the perfect right tool for the job scenario. You pick the one that fits your specific task.
Makes sense. What about the VHDL side in open source? Are there strong contenders there too?
Yes, definitely. The main player is GHDL. It's a leading open source VHDL compiler and simulator. It focuses on speed, too, using code generation backends like GCC or LLVM. Has excellent standard support VHDL 2008 working on 2019. Truly cross-platform, good performance.
Limitation.
It's VHDL only, so no mixing Verilog or System Verilog. There's also NVC, which stands for NIX VHDL compiler. Another high-quality option also uses LLVM for performance, targets modern VHDL standards.
What's special about NVC?
A really standout feature is its built-in code coverage generation. Statement, branch, toggle, FSM coverage, stuff you usually only get in expensive commercial tools. It's a huge plus for serious verification.
Wow, built-in coverage in open source. That's impressive. Same limitation as GHDL.
Yes, VHDL only, and it's just for simulation, not synthesis.
And are there other, maybe more niche open source tools worth a quick mention?
A few, yeah. There's Caver, which is an older interpretive Verilog, aiming for compatibility with the ancient Cadence Verilog XL. Kind of slow and dated now. Then, in the world of Chisel, that hardware construction language built on Scala, you have tools like Ascend. It's a simulator generator for Chisel's intermediate format, FERTL. Creates fast C++ code, very performant for Chisel designs. And also for Chisel through RTL, there's Treadle. It's an interpreter, so slower than Ascend, but better for quick interactive debugging within the Chisel environment. Both Ascend and Treadle are really tied to that specific Chisel ecosystem.
Okay, wow, that's a massive landscape of tools we've covered, from multi-million-dollar platforms down to free, specialized open source compilers. So let's bring it all together. How does someone listening, maybe an engineer, a student manager, actually choose that? How do you navigate this? Can we give some practical advice based on common situations?
Let's try. It really boils down to your specific context. Okay. Scenario 1, you're part of a large-scale ASIC or SOC verification team. Big company, complex chips.
A high-end?
Right. The recommendation here is almost always one of the big three. Siemens Questa, Synopsys VCS, or Cadence 6 Why? You need maximum performance, full UVM support, and that deep integration with the whole verification ecosystem, debug, coverage, formal, emulation. The high cost is offset by mitigating the huge risks of failure on these massive projects. The specific choice often comes down to existing tool chains, legacies, specific design needs, and, frankly, commercial negotiations.
Makes sense. Okay, scenario 2, FPGA design and verification. This covers a lot of people.
It does. If you're a beginner or very cost-sensitive, start with the free simulator bundled with your FPGA vendor's tools. So AMD's Vivado Simulator XSIM or the Questa Intel FPGA Starter Edition that comes with Quartus.
Why start there?
They're free, they're already integrated, and honestly, they're good enough for many small to medium FPGA projects. Get your feet wet there. However, if you're a professional FPGA team, or you're hitting performance limits, or need better language support like VHDL 2019, you should absolutely look at upgrading. The recommendation there is often Aldec Riviera PRO or Aldec Active HDL. They offer a significant step up in speed, features, and language support, but at a much more accessible price than the big three. Active HDL is great if you're Windows-based, Riviera PRO for more demanding designs, maybe Sulk FPGAs, or even ASIC prototyping.
Good practical advice. What about universities and students, academic and educational use?
For VHDL courses, GHDL is fantastic. It's free, runs everywhere, Windows, Linux, Mac, supports modern VHDL well. Easy choice. For Verilog courses, Icarus Verilog is the go-to. Easy to install, covers Verilog thoroughly, its interpreted nature is forgiving for learners, and it teaches the fundamentals well.
Okay, and one last group. Architectural research or high-performance open-source projects, maybe simulating new CPU designs.
For that kind of work, Verilator is almost certainly the answer. You need speed to simulate large hardware models running real software, and Verilator's ability to compile synthesizable designs into fast C++ models is perfect for that. And if you happen to be working specifically in the Chisel HCL world, then SN for performance simulation and Treadle for interactive debugging are the tools for that ecosystem.
That's incredibly helpful, mapping the tools directly to the use cases. Looking ahead now, connecting this all to the bigger picture, this HDL simulation market, even though it's mature, it's clearly not standing still. What trends are reshaping it? What's coming next?
Yeah, it's definitely evolving. Several key trends stand out. First, the rise of AI and verification. This is huge. We're seeing machine learning integrated into tools like Cadence's Excellium ML app. What's it doing? Optimizing regression test suites, running fewer tests but finding more bugs. Predicting where bugs are likely to hide. Speeding up the diagnosis of failures. It's aiming to make verification smarter, more data-driven, less brute force.
So AI helping overwhelmed engineers focus their efforts.
It's exactly. Second big trend, cloud-based simulation. Verification requires massive compute power, especially running thousands of tests in parallel for regression. The cloud offers that scalability on demand. So we're seeing a big shift towards running simulations in the cloud. This changes licensing models, more paper use, and makes high-performance computing accessible to more teams. You can spin up huge server farms just when you need them.
Democratizing access to compute power, essentially. Interesting. What else?
Third, the continued maturation of open-source capabilities. We touched on this. Open-source tools are getting better and better, adding features like UVM support, like Verilator's doing, or built-in code coverage like NVC has. These things used to be exclusive to expensive commercial tools. This makes open source increasingly viable not just for academia, but for smaller companies, or even for specific blocks within larger commercial design flows. The gap is narrowing in key areas.
And the last trend you see?
This might be a bit more forward-looking, but is the impact of hardware construction languages, HCLs, things like Chisel, designing hardware by writing code in languages like Scala. It's a different paradigm. And it brings its own simulation needs and tools, like Ascent and Treadle we mentioned. It points towards a future where maybe hardware design, the generation of the hardware description, and its simulation are much more tightly integrated, borrowing more ideas from modern software development to handle complexity.
What an amazing tour. From the basic need to avoid costly silicon mistakes, through the evolution of simulation engines, the giant commercial platforms, the vital niche players, the vibrant open source scene, and now looking towards AI and the cloud. It really underscores the incredible ingenuity and, frankly, the sheer complexity involved in creating the electronics that power our world. These simulation tools are right at the heart of making it all possible.
And here's maybe a final thought to chew on. Think about how these simulators, whether they cost millions or are free and open source, really do for hardware what compilers and debuggers do for software. They enable that rapid iteration, the innovation cycle. Now consider what happens as AI gets better integrated, as it starts blurring the lines between the software techniques used in verification and the hardware those techniques are trying to verify and debug. What new capabilities might emerge from that intersection? It's an exciting frontier.
That is a powerful thought. Where does that lead? We hope this deep dive has given you a much clearer map of this vital territory. We definitely encourage you to continue exploring, maybe download GHDL or Icarus Verilog and try them out, or read up on how AI is starting to change verification in your specific field.